working together. So, over on the right is Stinky. Stinky was drawn by a second grader, a 2D picture. The 8th graders had to figure out how to interpret Stinky as a 3D object that they actually made. So that was a design function, and they learned how to work together. So it turns out that the buildings that we built really reflect what we think is important in society. In the Middle Ages, it was great cathedrals. In the early 20th centuries, it was cathedrals to commerce, big office buildings. And here at Case Western Reserve University, the thick box is really a cathedral to innovation. On the ground floor of this building, the community comes in and has ideas about new products and problems to solve. Up on the second floor, they prototype these ideas and see what comes up. People like it. There's a manufacturing lab. How do we go from a prototype to actually manufacturing, to scale? How do we do that? How do we find a supply chain? Then there's an entrepreneurial center, and finally, there's startup office space. So this is a full stack from an idea, and here's the other thing. This is now the most popular place on campus. People go there so they can learn this stuff. And one other thing, they open source it. Everything they've learned about how to do it, they put on the internet, because this sharing ethos is a big deal. Anybody can take it and build on it. These are kind of a whole bunch of examples of how we're able to pull the future into the present. So I started thinking, what might it be around here in Gyungbuk in 2028, in just 10 years, if we accelerated learning and skills development, if we use this region as a 4th industrial revolution region, we added AI and agent-based modeling to urban planning, and then we added a blockchain to make this a more equitable economy, as Brock talked about. Well, here's one way of doing this. This is a room where people are designing the future of a city. Now, what they're actually doing is using Legos and moving buildings around, but as they do it, and they move the buildings around, it changes density, they're putting in new transit stops, they're making assumptions about building costs, and in real time, the model starts telling them how things will change. This is actually what the model says. This says, how important is residential? Are we pushing for employment? How much do we care about building and energy efficiency? This model actually shows, this is a project that we've done at the MIT Media Lab. So this actually shows 2 places in Boston, Kendall Square in blue, where MIT is, and Harvard Square in red, where Harvard is. But the point is, when you can see these things, you can collaboratively work on this. Both city planners, your constituents, even students can work on this, right? So now as you start moving these things around, you're actually collaboratively planning the city. Another really interesting thing happens is you can start predicting where will there be social interaction, where will there be innovation, where will people be lonely. Your agent-based modeling can tell you this years ahead of time. And then you can start seeing policy decisions, like it turns out in an autonomous car future where people own them, there'll be more vehicles and more emissions than if people share them. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Once you can start programming this and keeping track of it, you can reward people for what you want. This is where the blockchain comes in. If you have local currencies, you can do things that say, we'll create benefits for young professionals or families, reducing the cost of housing. We can manage amenities like grocery stores or daycare. Some of this has to do with applying token economics to housing, but it lets you go from planning to implementation. Essentially, you build a model, and you then use blockchain and local currencies to support that and create a local form of governance. And this creates better value for things like if you shop local, you get a better deal. If you live and work in the same district, maybe you do. If you volunteer. So this is a very positive way of essentially providing the governance function of blockchain in a local mechanism tied up with city planning. This uses a product that we have called CityScope, and we're hooking that up with actual financing mechanisms for cities. I'll just wrap up here. There's a remarkable opportunity just beneath the surface related to President Moon's commitment to build the world's largest solar facilities here in Korea. About 3.4 gigawatts, but about 400 megawatts of production is being looked at right in this province. That's 400 megawatts of production because it's for a data center. It turns out that there's hyper growth in the world's data centers. The largest data center on Earth today is about 100 megawatts. The 3 that are being planned for Korea are each about 150 to 300 megawatts. So you'll have the largest data center on Earth. There'll be a handful of them in just a few years. And that's because of the hypergrowth in cloud computing. Well, it turns out that the data center and the electricity that's being planned for here has something else, because it's more intelligent power than ever before. Working with Black & Veatch that is constructing this, we're building into it the largest blockchain energy product on Earth. This is energy that essentially reports its provenance, how it's being produced, where it's being produced. This is important because carbon emissions is a global problem, right? CO2 goes everywhere. But energy reporting is local. If you incent people to report energy and you share that information, you can create a global carbon market, and you can actually be at the leading edge of being able to solve that problem because you're looking at it globally. And the company that does this is Switch, a company that was incubated here in Korea. This company, Switch, has launched around the world and in Europe with about 3.5 gigawatts. But I find what's going on here most inspiring because you have the government, you're going to have big companies, and I think this creates a leadership position for Korea to leverage this and take advantage of some inefficiencies in the energy market that have to do with poor incentives and some waste and lack of universal governance. And all of that is kind of because of work that's going on right here. And that will come to fruition in just a couple of years. Right around 2020 will be this production here that will be around a 400 megawatt plant. So you can think of the amount of solar that's going out, the amount of carbon that's being captured, and the fact that what's being put in here will let Korea start driving global energy policy, because the largest energy blockchain project on Earth will have a huge home here. So I want to both thank you and congratulate you for that, but that suggests an awful lot of both economic opportunity and a great deal of influential opportunity here. And crypto is really a movement. Tim Draper, who's one of the venture capitalists behind it, talked about the fact that in a way it's a Kickstarter for societal transformation. It creates a market for governance. As Brock talked about, it puts a whole bunch of people working together to solve a problem in an open way. That's the concept behind it. It's really a movement that's in code, and it's a movement for everyone. So in the case of energy, many of the players. So the energy companies, the utilities, it's a way of connecting people up and creating common incentives. You know, sometimes this word crypto economics, it's a fancy word even for the translator. But it really means two things. Crypto is about the past. Crypto is what happened. It's an immutable ledger to prove what happened. And economics is about the future. It's about predictions and being able to make smart predictions, which we can do in energy. The more we know about it, the more we can plan and reduce carbon. So you put that together, and really, this is an opportunity to lead by understanding the past and the future. Maybe we could take a look at that last video, please, that imagines what it will be like in not too distant future when we bring all those things together. And you can play that out in the other room over here. This is a future that is very... Oh, and now it's going to repeat itself. Well, while it's repeating itself, I want to thank you very much. This is a future that is well at hand. Your decision to be a leader in blockchain squares very well with your decision to be a leader in kind of the next industrial revolution. And it turns out it's all powered by energy. So being a leader in blockchain and energy and these new skills, I think positions you perfectly. So I want to thank you for your time, inspire you all to read The Maker City, and let's make more great cities. Thank you.